as a small business starting. I worked at CF&I for first 10 years of my life, so I know about industry, I know about mining, and then from there I went and had a very successful consulting engineering firm. Well, I brought that experience to 12 years in the legislature. Every year I carried something for small business, anything that would help small business flourish. That was my #1 priority. Also, I was always a champion for infrastructure needs that we were needing here in Pueblo in southern Colorado. I will be the champion to make sure that the dollars that go to Washington, D.C. come back to the district, all of the district in the 3rd Congressional District. The Civil Engineering Society, the American Society of Civil Engineers, have done reports that our infrastructure is deteriorating. And if we don't reinvest into infrastructure, we're going to have catastrophic events. So I would be that person that champions issues dealing with infrastructure and job economy.
Mr. Chieftain.
Looking at what's coming out of the United States Senate right now, 3 bills that I will have to reintroduce because the Senate has failed to act on them are the Healthy Forest Management and Wildfire Act, something that we all see impacting our watersheds, our communities, power lines running through our district. A good common sense piece of legislation that we've been able to get through the House, and we hope that we'll be able to have a Senate that will actually deal with some of the challenges that we face right here at home. Second piece of legislation is going to be the Planning for American Energy Future Act, in which we literally call for all of the above. I enumerate this in the legislation: wind, solar, geothermal, hydroelectric, oil, gas, oil shale, our minerals. I'll always submit, nobody in the world will do it better than an American company right here at home. Why wouldn't we want to put Americans back to work? Third piece of legislation, which has been stalled in the Senate again, has been the Protecting Our Water Rights Act, standing up for our personal private property rights. We're also going to be working on legislation to address the extreme overreach that we are seeing coming out of the EPA in terms of waters of the U.S., in terms of their air quality measures that is going to be crippling jobs. And let's be very clear. We all want clean air. We all want clean water, but we don't want an EPA that thinks that it can rule over all. One other piece of legislation that I'm going to be promoting is going to be called the RAINS Act. I'm on the Small Business Committee. We're paying $2 trillion a year right now in regulatory costs in this country. The United States, when it comes to the World Economic Freedom Index, isn't even in the top 10. 7 out of 10 jobs are created in the private sector. The RAINS Act is going to be able to get Congress reinserted back into that rulemaking authority, just like we do here in Colorado with sunset legislation, a good common sense piece of legislation. That's not the end, but the beginning of what we're working on to fight for this district and your jobs.
Mr. Tapia.
Thank you. In the 12 years that I served in the legislature, 4 in the House and 8 in the Senate, I passed probably somewhere near 300 bills. And they were bipartisan. They got signed into law. So I'm sorry if I'm not impressed with the 3 bills. But I do want to say that in research of the bills that Congressman Chieftain talked about, healthy forest management, wildfire prevention, the Jobs for American Act, which by some accounts, and the account that I have here, was cleverly combined with 12 partisan pet projects, with 7 already passed in the Senate, was dead on arrival. And also the Department of Interior had formally expressed its opposition to both measures before a subcommittee on public lands and environment. It specifically said that the department cannot support this measure because it expedites commercial grazing and timber harvest at the expense of the environment. We cannot destroy the environment for sake of energy development.
Mr. Tipton?
Mr. Tapia, you probably cited something that's very important. Said you weren't impressed with the bills that we've been able to get through the House of Representatives. You mentioned 12 years. I guess what's different between us is I'm not a career politician. You know, it's also important, it's when we are actually looking to read the bill. Had you bothered to read the bill that you were just citing, not one environmental requirement is removed. If you don't want to create jobs on American soil, I do. And when we're talking about being able to get bills through the state legislature, I think one that impacted some folks I know here in Pueblo. You had your property taxes raised when Mr. Tapia voted to balance the budget on the back of hardworking senior citizens who are having a tough time. I don't think that that's an appropriate thing to be touting in terms of success coming out of the state legislature. Every vote I've cast has stood up for senior citizens and for our children and working for their future.
Congressman Tipton, when I served 12 years in the state legislature, it was as a citizen legislature, which meant that I went back to my day job. I went to Denver, I did my job in Denver, and then I came back and ran my business. That is different than Congress, which it is a full-time political job. But the bills that I carry have always been protecting children, protecting the underserved, and also protecting the seniors. I will continue to fight for seniors. I will continue to advocate for a balanced budget. That's one thing you did not recognize, that in the state legislature, we have a balanced budget process. For 4 years, with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, we agreed on the budget and we presented it to the legislature and they passed it. There wasn't any partisan maneuvers because we were getting a job done. For 4 years, I did that, and I'm proud of that as something that served the citizens of Colorado.
Okay. Mr. Tipton, final rebuttal.
You know, one thing, and I hope you'll join me with this, I cast a vote, and your colleagues from your party would not support us in this, is to get a balanced budget requirement in Washington, D.C. You know, when we talk about, if we go back to some of your earlier comments, when you'd cited that the administration opposed bills that I moved through the House of Representatives with bipartisan support, Mr. Tapia, calling them dead on arrival. So who is not willing to work together? You know, if the president wants to be able to see this move forward, can we be excited right now when we have the lowest labor participation rate in 36 years? Is that an administration policy to be proud of? I don't think so. When I come into Pueblo, Colorado, I see hardworking people that would love to be able to have a job, to be able to literally go to work. They aren't looking for a handout, they're looking for a way up. Let's get the private sector moving.
Okay, our next question, Mr. Tipton, you'll answer this one first. What is your opinion of President Obama's actions regarding the terrorism threat of ISIS?
You know, I think right now we have men and women in harm's way, and I believe we need to be able to deal with it. We'd had a briefing in Washington not long ago in terms of dealing with ISIS, or ISIL as they're now referring to themselves. I went in actually with the intent of being able to support an amendment for that action. But when I listened to what the President and his team was outlining as our action agenda, I didn't see an actual plan being put into place. They are a threat. They are a threat. They're the ones that have put up on YouTube and on Facebook, through their spokesman, the comment that they will fly the flag of Islam in the White House. We cannot help but take that seriously. But as Commander-in-Chief, I think we should expect the President to lay out a clear and concise plan to be able to literally address this. I'm not seeing it right now, but for our men and women that are in the military that are currently in harm's way, Godspeed, our prayers are with you, and we want to make sure they've got the best equipment available to make sure that they're standing up for American freedom.
Mr. Tapia?
Thank you, Steve. You know, I hesitate to make this a political football because we do have our young men in harm's way. I have yet to see the Republicans agree with Obama in anything that he could ever do. But this issue is particularly complex. It's complex. Several years ago, we partnered with a guy named Saddam Hussein. He was our partner. We gave him arms. He ended up controlling the country. We thought he was our friend. Years later, he became the vicious dictator that he was, and then we had to take him out. We have King Assad, who 6 months ago, we were wanting to arm the rebels to overthrow his regime, and today we're now partnering with him so we can control ISIL. We don't know who our friends are in that region. What we have to do is tell the neighboring countries, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, who benefit from a lot of the aid that we did. It's their boots on the ground that they have to go and protect their borders. We can support them. We should support them. We're the greatest country on earth. But we should hesitate in drawing any further into any direct military action from the United States. So I want to engage in that conversation. The thing is that I want to engage in it so that we could come up with a uniform message and support our president and our country. That's when we're strong, when we're together. And that's what we have to do, and we haven't done it.
Mr. Chieftain?
You know, I think Mr. Tapia and I are in concert, that politics, when it comes to the men and women of the United States military, ends at the water's edge. But I think we can not help but expect that the commander-in-chief, and we don't have one of those, Mr. Tapia, in the House or the Senate. It's called the President of the United States. We want to be able to see that clear and concise program. I agree with you. When we're talking about boots on the ground, I want to see Saudi Arabian boots on the ground. I want to be able to see United Arab Emirates boots on the ground. But this is part of our fight as well. And let's develop that plan, but the president cannot punt. It's about time he really led on this issue.
Mr. Tapia?
I'd like to continue.
Okay. The next question, Mr. Tapia, you'll answer this first. Another topical question. Do you think the United States government is doing enough to prevent Ebola from taking a foothold in the United States?
Well, this is our latest issue that challenges our whole nation. But I have to say that my faith in the United States is still as strong as when I was a young man and when I was a child going to grade school. We are the best country in the world. We are equipped to deal with this. First, we have to recognize that it exists, and we have to protect our access to our country, and we have to do a better job. And I